Hey, it's Don the Auction Professor. Today we're going to give you out a BOLO today. It's something that I look for a lot. It's something you see in some of my videos, my haul videos, and even my what's sold on eBay videos. It's related to beer in general. I'm just going to touch on a few things in the beer category. I'll touch on labels, which I do get quite often. And then I'm going to touch in on some cans, just the general idea on these. These are items that you will find across the board at garage sales, thrift stores, flea markets, antique malls, even on Craigslist, Facebook market posts, and things like that. For the most part, most beer cans are not worth much money. Same goes for most beer labels, but there's a ton out there that are worth a lot of money that do show up. Beer items are collected still to this day by a large amount of people that peel off labels and all kinds of things off the bottles, so they show up fairly regularly. There is a large percentage of people that do collect them, so the market is still a good market to be in. They do show up regularly. They do have a lot of collectors, so that when you do post them onto eBay, they do sell fairly well, at least for us. We've sold labels for beer into the $800 range just for a paper label off of a beer bottle. And I'm going to show you some that go well over and above that. Cans, the same thing. Cans sell for a ton of money for us. I see them quite often. I can get them fairly easily. Pickers, auctions, and antique stores even. The people don't know how to look up every item, or they're not thinking it's worth a lot of money. Even rusted out cans will sell. Even damaged, ripped up labels, even labels missing pieces, or unmatched sets like the neck of the bottle label and then the main bottle label itself too. Those are just things that we've collected and sold for years now. So we're going to go over the screen and I'm going to show you some collectible beer items right now. Okay, so for today we're going to talk about beer labels and beer cans. I'm just going to go quickly over this. We're not going to spend a lot of time because it's really going to take you the time to go in and look up these individual items. You're going to have to find your sources on these. But most of this kind of stuff I can find even at garage sales, especially estate sales and auctions. Beer labels are still collected to this day by people. They'll take them off bottles even right this minute. I know many people who have beer labels all over doors in their garage or in their bar area or anything along that line. The ones I see that sell the most and they're collected the most are usually British ones. And as you see here, the highest priced label on here is $1,330 for a piece of paper that went on a beer bottle from Kent. And they go down from there, $1,000, $1,000, $840. I mean, there's a ton of high-priced labels in here. U.S. ones are not. They all seem to sell if they're the right age, the right style. Again, as I said, most of the ones you see up here are all British ones. They don't have to be British ones to sell. The British ones just seem to sell for a higher amount. And here's I believe this is a U.S. one as well, too. This is for something a little different. This is a half keg, but again, still a high-priced item. If you run up and you're on a sale and there's a bunch of beer bottles and beer collectibles, ask them about labels. A lot of times they just don't put those out. Stuff like this. Here's a good one, a good example. Stoltz Pilsner, Omaha, Nebraska. It's a U.S. one, $305. I mean, these are things that I can pick up for a couple bucks all the time. I may not get 100 of them or a whole bunch at once, but I do get quite a few beer labels, bottle labels in general, quite often. Let's see if we can find some other ones in here. But as you see, even, different styles of labels. There's a ton of different ones out here. You can get lucky and get some. Another thing you'll see on a lot of the labels is, or even in the description or on the title, it'll say IRTP. Before 1950, all beer labels had to put internal revenue tax paid on the bottles. On the label-wise, so it would be showing on the bottles. So that's why you see in the titles IRTP. That means they're 1950 or before, and they're usually worth money. Now, there's one key thing I look for, but not the only key thing I look for in beer bottle labels. Let's go down and see if I can find a couple in here that have that on it, just to give you an idea. Let me move back up here. That one doesn't seem to have it. The age isn't always a big, huge key factor, but it is for the British ones. Let's see, here's a pre-pro you'll see as well, too. That's before Prohibition, so like 1910 and before era. That's what I look for. I look for all of that kind of stuff. Any military-looking labels I look for, too. Now, I'm not going to talk about any of the other things you see in this category, like signs, trays, or anything like that. Let me see if I can find one of these. other labels on here. Usually it's right up on, here's one right here. Let's take a look at one. And then I'm going to go to cans. And again, these labels do show up quite often. Even at garage sales, I've been lucky enough to get a whole binder full of labels. All beer labels, sometimes vintage. People that collect beer labels now sometimes collect the vintage ones. A lot of the estate sales people there actually collected the labels as well too. So if you run into vintage beer bottles, beer cans at an estate sale, at an auction, always ask if they've got the paper labels. Always, always, always ask. And there's sales that are just for paper items that I see and run into, and find stuff just like this as well too. So let's go down here so you can see it. It's going to say it on the label once I get to it. Internal Revenue Tax Paid. Bottom left-hand side there, that is what IRTP stands for. This is a good label. This is about average. You'll see Bach on a lot of beers, a lot of different brewing companies. It doesn't even necessarily matter where it was produced. This one went for $181. You know, stuff like this I can get for $5 and $10, or all the way down to $1 or even 50 cents on many occasions. If you're buying them from a high-end collector, I'm going to pay a little more, but I look them up so I know that I'm getting the ones that are worth the most money. So again, that's just a touch on beer labels. I just want you to see the value in these items. I've spent hours looking up beer labels and stuff. I get them all the time. I've got some up right now. I've got a couple real nice ones from the 1900 era, like 1898, 1899 era, that I'll be going up soon. So I'll probably get to show those in a haul video, or at least in my What's Sold video. So again, labels are key to one of my areas. And as I said, the more niches you can add to your repertoire of things to look for, the better you will always do. I have branched out. Every year I learn a new area or research something different, so I can go to a place and find stuff almost anywhere, any type of item. That's just key. Don't center in on just clothing or just books or just games or just certain types of paper. Go out and across the board. Anything in certain areas are always worth money. And beer alone, anything beer is worth good money. But look for that, the IRTP, Internal Revenue Tax Paid. You may see it spelled differently or in different order or different wording, but literally that's what you look for, a statement similar to that. They'll always list IRTP in the title. Whenever I see that, I know it's 1950 or before, and I've already got some money. Almost every beer label that has the IRTP label on it's worth at least $10. You know, most of them are worth more than that, and again, some of them are worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Some labels we've sold for $400 and $500 after only having them up for a few hours as well, like early Anheuser-Busch labels from like 1898, 1899, 1900. All of those are good. World's Fair beer labels from like the Columbian Exposition from 1893. Big money movers. Military ones that are in olive drab paper, very big movers. Let me move on to beer cans real quick. Again, a lot of this you're going to have to look up. I just want you to know what's out there and what's available, what you can make money on. This is a niche that some people just do beer bottles, beer labels, and cans and make an entire living off of just this category. They're big-time collectors. They're ones who know the area very well, but then again, anybody can learn this area. There's books out there and stuff, but for the most part, I try to use eBay for most of it. I do have a few friends that are heavy into it, so I do end up trading a lot and don't always even list a lot of these. I don't have to. They save material throughout the year that they set aside. When I get something, we swap, or we might just sell it outright. So if I ever need a price, I know who to call. He's got a bunch of price guides on this. So anyway, like here's a good example, and I think let's show you some close-ups first, and then we'll just scan through the category. Again, cans are just as collectible and just as popular as, you know, the beer labels themselves. With cans, it's a more tangent experience to collect. Not everyone's worth some money, but sometimes I'm lucky and I'll get a whole collection of these for like $50 because they think there's just nothing in there. And one can will be worth hundreds, and, you know, I'm going to make a ton of money off that one can. I don't even sometimes care what happens to the rest, but almost always I find a couple good ones if I'm buying hundreds of beer cans. I just got to get them dirt cheap. That's the key. This is one that I've looked for. I've had one of these. It was in terrible condition. I still got 300 and some odd bucks for it, but this one's pretty immaculate. What you look for is this steel, how they are pressed together. You'll see this style here. The less rust it has, the better it will always be. Again, this is a beautiful can. This is really nice. Their pictures don't do it justice, I would imagine. But this is just a real nice can. Tax paid, the whole works. Nice early can. probably 50s or before. So again, $2,000 with 27 bids. This isn't a fake sale. These sell at that rate all the time. Now here's that Fort Pitt one. Some of the cans, the artwork is just incredible. They're very attractive. They're pieces of art, advertising art, I guess you'd say. This one's a very popular one. Depends on the condition. When they say empty, sometimes you can find them where they're empty and they've been sealed. Here's a vintage. Hang on, let's go back up for just a second. Here's a vintage Budweiser, $119. It's still up. It could go for hundreds, but anyway, that's just another one on there. But this Fort Pitt, a lot of this, you may not even realize it's worth money. You could walk by these all the time. The ones that have the instructions on it are even better. Any ones that have the instructions that are flat top are key ones you want to get. There is a similar style sealing technique on the side. It doesn't have the dovetail style connections, but it's the same basic principle. Again, $3,100 for that can. English. Now here's a cone top. We'll zoom in on this one here. I'm sorry, just a second here. Again, you can see there's tons of them up there. Schlitz, $439. Somebody's asking for it. Some of these cone tops are going to sell for that. I have sold cone tops for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Let's see here. This one here is a cone top, and that is what a cone top looks like. You can get soda cans that are cone tops. There's all kinds of things that are cone tops, including like automotive stuff that comes in a cone top. But only play and mess with the beer ones and the soda ones. That's all I mess with, unless they're dirt cheap and have no remnants of the interior content. I just don't like anything that could be flammable. Now this one did sell for, here's another one, $1,975. This is a military issued can in olive drab. Now I see these occasionally in military collectors and military shows, and a lot of times people don't realize the value on these. It's just like a display piece to add to the collection. Let me get this back down here. This is Grand Prize, the GPU's Grand Prize. The olive drab was printed. It's from Texas and sent overseas to our sailors and soldiers in the Army. This one's actually worse than some because the top was literally cut off and removed. Had it been totally there, I bet you this one would have went for even more. And that's literally a complete can, just goes for a ton of money on these. I wish eBay wouldn't have all these extra stuff. But anyway, $1,975 for that can. Another one that I do run into are these James Bond cans. This one's $1,100. People just don't think they have that much value. And there's several different varieties. There's a different one there. 355, 6 views, still going. Still could hit 1,000 or better on that one as well, too. So again, this is just a touch on it. You need to do some research into it. Some of these are even newer, 70s, 80s. These, let me see if it has a date on here. No, can is in, yeah. See, now here's a perfect example. This is pre-1966. So this would be from like Dr. No, the very first couple James Bond, circa 1966. But there was a ton of price guides out there for these two. This might be one of those factors that if you don't know somebody like I do, you may need a price guide if you want to get into these. But I can pretty much promise you're going to run into dirty cans sitting in people's garages quite often. At garage sales especially, and flea markets and stuff, and people just throw them on the table. Even some of the rustier cans can go. Like this can is $1,151 in this condition. Rusted, you still might get $50 to $100 and even a junked can, just because the value on a perfect can is so high. Even a damaged can might go for $200 or $300, and this one will show up. I promise you. I have seen this one and acquired this one before myself. Another one here's Schmidt. Let me zoom back. And again, there's some neat ones, neat graphics on that one there. Meitzerbrow beer, fishing. Yeah, it's a nice one. $442, and it's not even over yet with 9 bidders. Dutch Lunch. Here's another one. 14 bidders, $322. Alpsbrow beer, $142, 8 bidders. Beer cans go. I am telling you, beer cans are good. Now, let me get this back in view here. Now, here's a decent example. This one does look like it has a ding up here on the top. Yeah, it's hard to say if that's a ding or reflection, but this one, when these have humidity, the chrome color on them will fade and they'll get all mucky looking and have spots across them. This one doesn't have that. This is a very nice looking can. Now, there's some petroleum jellies and things you can use to clean some of these up that will get some of the discoloration off. But if it's got that humidity pocking where it takes away the chrome color, there's not much you can do to get that back. But in this condition, I think it was open from, open from the bottom is what you want to look for. That way on a display shelf you can't see that it was opened. That is a key. Flat top are what these are called, with the pull tabs. There's zip tabs, pull tabs. There's different versions of the tab as well. This one's opened obviously with a punch as well. That's the only way to open this kind of can. But this one went for $898.88 with 25 bidders. Beer, I'm telling you, beer cans can sell. I see them quite often. I've seen them on Craigslist, I've seen them on Facebook Marketplace, and I've seen them in the newspaper, even garage sales, flea markets, even at Savers. You can run across beer cans. Now, I talk about Tahoe. Anything Tahoe seems to sell. Even this beer can, maybe 10 years ago or less, was probably a tenth of what you would see it here. You could get them for 15, 20 bucks in some cases, some of these. But these cans have steadily increased, anything that says Tahoe. Again, here's some of the rusting and some of the humidity damage you can see. But even in the condition, even with the spotting, it's still a nice looking can, because what most people are looking for are the graphics on the sides of the can. But that's literally just a touch in this, as I said. You can scan through here and you're going to see hundreds and hundreds of cans. Let's see how many are up. 31,000 cans in the beer can section. And, you know, some people might not put the word beer in the title, so there might be another couple thousand listings. $1,300, $1,200. This is just a Coors can, golden flat top. I mean, this is just a huge assortment on here. Some of them don't look fancy, like this one, $1,200. More of the James Bond. Here's a Budweiser flat top, Open Star Beauty. That means the star has an open center in it. It's $1,200. Budweiser, even stuff like that sells. That's a name brand. It's not a high dollar beer. I mean, the list of beer cans that can be collected are horrendous. Indy 500, here's an Air one. This one might have been like a bogus Air, but for the most part, that they're the real Air printing, where they've printed two different labels on the same can. They're not huge high movers, but you can just see the prices. I have not filtered these at all. This is just literally everything that shows up in here. And you can just see, here's another nice cone top there, actually. Just a nice selection. I love vintage stuff. I love advertising, cans, bottles, boxes, anything like that. Containers that stuff came in, wooden crates. This is just literally along that line. Tahoe one right there, $712. As I said, they go for a ton of money. Indy 500 with race car on it. Those are always worth money. Ones that say Pilsner, or if they have the IRTP statement on them. I mean, there's just a ton of beer cans, and you see all of these, almost everyone up here sold in a high price. There's very few in this section that haven't sold. So again, and you can get lucky enough looking at a collection that has hundreds of cans, and as long as you know a few basics like the James Bond or some of these other ones, you might be able to see that there's just a couple cans out of a 1,000 can collection that'll pay for your purchase and then some. You might be able to get a huge can collection for just a few $100, where there's one can alone's worth 1,000. You know, and I know people think, you know, that's not going to happen, but I run into big can collections all the time. I have one out back right this minute that I got last week alone. So, and I do get labels all the time. But that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gives you some really good thoughts. As I always recommend, do some of your own comp searches on things and just scan through these categories on your own. Take a look out and see how common that you can find beer collectibles. There's a lot of places that have beer collectibles across the board. But that's what I have for you here. Well, there you go. That's just a touch on it. I'm sure I'm going to go back to beer and alcohol and other sides of this market here, but those are the key items that most people see. Beer label collections show up very, very regularly. I just bought a couple myself. I may show a haul video with just beer labels so you can actually see some of the beer labels that I get. Pre-Prohibition, as you saw, are key and one of the best areas, as well as some of the British import beer labels. So that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some real good ideas ideas and some thoughts on it. There are so many avenues of collectibles that people just aren't aware of, and it's just another niche that you can add to your repertoire of things to look for. The more you know, the more you're going to make. Don't center in on just one or two items because you may not have the sources to get them. The more niches, the more bolos you know, the better off you are going to be no matter what. But that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some ideas and some thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon up top to be notified when we post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.